Hello, my name is Samar. I also go by Sam or First Time Panner. Any of those you want to call me, you can. This will be yet another introduction video for another project pan I'm doing. And this one is my closet door just opened by itself. I'm legitimately terrified right now. I'm smiling, but I'm scared. But I don't have time to be scared because I'm meeting someone after this, so I'm gonna keep filming. If this video goes up, I'm okay. This is probably going to be my biggest undertaking for the year, and I already have some quite big projects, but this one I feel like I don't really know how I'm going to do on this. I've never attempted something like this. As you can see from the title, it's Pan Those Palettes, which just means I'm panning multiple types of palettes throughout the year. I have both eye palettes and a face palette. I knew I wanted to do a Pan That palette again this year. I did one in 2022 and 2023. I took a break in 2024 to do, sorry if you can see lint flying everywhere, my blanket is shedding. I took a break in 2024 to do No Pan Left Behind because I just felt like my eyeshadow collection was expanding rapidly, and while I was doing my Pan That palette projects, I just wasn't using anything really but the very specific eyeshadows that I had in projects. I really miss Pan That palette, so I wanted to do it again. And I also feel like even after my eyeshadow palette declutter, like unofficial eyeshadow palette declutter I did for my December makeup recap, there were still a lot of palettes that I wasn't ready to declutter but are getting very old, and are palettes that, some of them are palettes that I absolutely love but get almost no use on, and I want to remedy that, especially before they get so old that I can't use them anymore. And I couldn't choose just one, so I just decided to do this seasonally. So I have 4 eyeshadow palettes here that I'm planning on panning for the entire year, and I'll be using all 4 of these throughout the entire year. I'm not only going to use one for the first 3 months strictly, but for each season I will have a focus eyeshadow palette, and I've kind of tailored them to the color story for each season. And then for the entire year I will be attempting to pan my Franken palette. This was the one palette that I had in my plan to pan video for 2025. It looks like this. It probably looks different than when you last saw it. I even had some other things in here earlier that I took out right before this. This is kind of just like where I throw random magnetic pans, but for now this is what this looks like. It has 3 different blushes, a contour, a bronzer, and a highlight. Then it has 2 empty pans. This, sorry, I'm not holding it in frame. This might change throughout the year. It's not static. Even just like 2 weeks ago I added something into here, so this is not me like saying this is the exact palette that I will be panning, and I'm going to try to like drill pan and finish everything in here. I know I won't be able to finish everything in here. In fact, I doubt I'll be able to even hit pan on everything in here, considering there are 3 blushes that look very similar. The whole point of this is just to get use on these shades, because these are either extremely old or they're things that I just want to get out for one reason or another. And also I like personalize this palette, so it should be a palette that I'm drawn to anyway. I especially wanted to do a face palette, like Pan That palette this year, because as I mentioned in my makeup collection video, I just have way too many face palettes. I had a few going into 2024, but around like very beginning of 2024 is when I started really getting into face palettes, and I started just accumulating them at a very rapid pace. I think I brought a new face palette of some sort into my collection maybe every 2 months last year, so I just need to kind of like cut my collection down. But just a little bit about this palette. So of course I have these 2 empty pans here. Don't worry about those for now. This is a depotted L'Oreal blush that just kept falling out of the pan because the glue stopped working. I do like this blush enough to keep it. I didn't want to just throw it away because I really, really like the color. I don't shop from L'Oreal anymore, or like at the current moment, but I do like a lot of their products, especially their True Match line, which this is from. This is the shade, I think, N6 or N7 in their blushes. So it's a neutral blush and it goes very well as far as depth with my skin tone. The only thing that I don't like about it is that it does have some sparkle in it, but it doesn't show up too much. You can definitely see it when I put it on my cheeks, but I usually end up having glitter on my cheeks anyway, just from like all the eyeshadow I'm wearing anyway, so it doesn't bother me as much as it used to when I first started using it. So anyway, that's this blush. This is the most recent addition to this palette. It's my Essence the blush in the shade 10 Befitting, which I'm pretty sure is like their most popular shade from that line. It was the first one I got because everyone was talking about it, and it truly is such an amazing blush. I haven't used it since depotting it. I had to repress it because I tried depotting it because the packaging was broken and it just completely crumbled. So don't try to do that, by the way. As I was saying, it is just like an amazing, like super smooth, beautiful, neutral blush that really goes with anything. I would say as far as blushes go, even though this isn't like a brownie nude, it kind of is like a true nude blush because it's still a pink, but it's neutral and it's very subdued, so it goes with everything. And it's not so pigmented that you have to be super careful with it. So this is one of my favorite blushes in my collection. I love it. I would repurchase it if I wasn't able to repress it, but it still seems fine. I'll just swatch it since I had it already on my finger. This is the Essence blush and this is the L'Oreal blush. The third and final blush I have in here for now is my Franken blush. I combined, it was one of the mini Too Faced Love Flush blushes. I can't remember exactly what shade it is. I'm pretty sure it was called, I think it was called I Will Always Love You. I can't remember. But if you remember that little mini trio for, I think, the holidays one year in maybe 2017, it was the super pink one. And that just like was not, and still is not, my type of shade. I don't like super pinky blushes. And then I Franken that, it also like just completely crumbled in the pan. And I combined that with a little Bobbi Brown mini bronzer in the shade medium. That was like one of the Sephora birthday gifts, I think, one year. I think also from 2017. So the stuff in here is very old. But that was way too light and way too pink. Even though it was supposed to be a medium tone bronzer, it was a light pink, and I used it as blush anyway, as like kind of what I was describing earlier as one of those like brownie toned nude blushes. That's how I would use it. So I just ended up frankening those two together and making this blush, which I really do like because the Too Faced blush was so pigmented. This one is too. This is what it looks like. It does look slightly mauve when I swatch it. If I've used this on my cheeks before, I don't remember, like since frankening it, I don't remember what it looks like on my cheeks. But swatching it out, I really like the way it looks. As you can tell, I have a type when it comes to powder blushes, at least. Moving on to this side, I have a highlighter. This is a repressed half of a highlighting duo I had from e.l.f. This is pretty much like an iridescent type highlighter shade. It's one of those like colorful highlighters that looks white in the pan, and it's a yellow shade. You can probably see the yellow. Hopefully you can see it in the camera. I kind of just like repressed it in here because I knew I wanted to declutter the highlighters because it was like a yellow and an orange, and I didn't really want to get rid of the whole thing, so I repressed both of those actually into eyeshadow pans, but I only repressed the yellow one into like a medium-sized pan as a highlighter because there are like certain occasions when I will use a yellow highlighter, because this one is like, you can sheer it out if you use a very light hand, so it can look flattering for like monochromatic type looks, but I don't think I'm going to get too much use on this. I definitely don't think I'm going to hit pan, but I'm keeping it in this palette, so it is going into the project. Then I have my bronzer. This is a Franken of multiple things. I can't even remember like what the products were other than one, or even how many things are in this mix. This is a dry press. This is the only dry press in here, so I feel like I have to be a little bit extra careful with this one. But the only thing that I remember I for sure put in here is I had a mini like free gift with purchase of NARS Laguna, but that one is way too, like the original Laguna, it is way too light for me. Here's what this one looks like. I have tried using it, so I know that it does work for me. It's not too dark, which is what I like. I feel like this would be a good year-round bronzer for me, so I'm glad to have this in the palette. And then finally I have my contour, which is a Franken, but of like kind of the same item. I bought an Essence contour duo, and I got it in the dark version. They had like a light and a dark one, and only one of the sides worked for me. The other one was way too light, so I just Frankened them together, and now I have what looks like this. It's still pretty light, but I feel like I could get it to work, especially now that I'm in winter, like winter spring. I don't really have much of a tan. I haven't used this on my face since frankening it, but I'm sure it'll work just fine. These swatches, by the way, like face products, I never really trust the swatches like on the back of my hand because they always end up looking different on your face, especially because like you don't use such an opaque layer as when you do when you're swatching. But those are all 6 shades for my face palette. I'm really excited to use this. I currently don't have a makeup desk. I've never had a makeup desk, so I don't know why I said currently. I pretty much keep all my makeup in an acrylic organizer, and this clearly won't fit in that, so I'm going to have to like lug this around every time I move to do my makeup. But other than that, I'm just really excited to use this for the rest of the year because it has, other than a face powder, it has pretty much everything I would need for my entire face as far as powder products, and I really like all the shades in here, so I'm excited to see what it's like using a face palette pretty much every day. Now I'll get on to the eyeshadow palettes. I have 4 here. So the first one is the e.l.f. Rose Gold Nude. This is what I plan on using as my first quarter like winter palette. This you may have just seen on my channel very recently. This is my level 5 palette for Project Level Up. I'm bringing Project Level Up back this year, but I'm starting over and I'm changing things a bit. So if you want to see that, it's coming sometime this week. But for Pan That palette, yeah, this will be the palette that I'm starting with, just because I feel like not only did I enjoy using this palette last year, and my plan always was to declutter this at the end of 2024 because I thought I was going to have lots of pans on it by the end of the year. I don't know why I deluded myself into thinking I could do that, but I do want to get a bunch of good use on this, and then most likely for all of these palettes, my plan is to, assuming I get good use on them, declutter them by the end of the year, because they're all palettes that either are older or palettes that I don't care about as much as I used to. But for now, I'm excited to just keep using this, and I felt like this was the most wintry color story out of all of them. It has these like dark purples, and it's pretty much all cool toned except for 1, maybe 2 shades in here. So I think it's a good color story for winter. A lot of these shades as well I could wear to work, so this could be pretty much an everyday palette for me. I don't want to just wear pinks and purples and rose golds every single day, but the formula is perfectly fine. It's not my favorite, but it's very usable, and I've gotten used to using this palette because of my Project Level Up, so I'm very excited to use this. As my quarter 2 or spring palette, I have my Natasha Denona Mini Star. This is a palette that both I don't really love the color story as much anymore, and then also the quality is not great. If you've been watching my channel for pretty much any amount of time, you'll know that I don't support Natasha Denona anymore. I haven't for a while, and I also just don't think, like, in my personal opinion, it has nothing to do with anyone else. In my personal opinion, I don't like think that her eyeshadows are worth the hype. And I know that a lot of people say, oh, it's because her minis don't have like the same formula as her mini palettes. First of all, they should. If she's selling them for money and she's calling them like a mini version, they should have the same quality. They should be good quality, period. But second, I have like almost all the different sizes of her eyeshadows, and I don't think, just in general, that her formula is worth the hype or the price. And other people I've heard say that too. Also, her brand is just like, her and her brand, very terrible ethics. I really considered decluttering this last year, but I figured there were still a few shades that I could get use out of this year. This will probably be like my least used palette, just because there are only a few shades that I think really are usable in this palette. This first one I, for the past few days, have been using as a lid setting shade, and as far as that, I feel like it works just fine. So I'll probably get the most use on this palette from this shade, but then also I do like this shade just fine, both like as a lid, like all over lid shade if I'm wearing something dark underneath it, or I like to use this as an inner corner highlight. I feel like it's a metallic, there's nothing special about it, but it's still usable. So this is another shade that I could get use on. And then I do like this gold here. The brown I do not like at all. It is patchy and it just fades. Then this like blue brown, I think it is, I think it's like a blue brown duochrome. It does not show up as a duochrome, and it's just like very hard to show up in general. I have to use an extremely dark base underneath it to get it to show up. So only 3 shades in here that I'm planning on getting any use out of, really, but as long as I can use it, I may as well just chuck it into this project. And I chose that for my spring palette literally just by default. For my third quarter or summer palette, I picked my ABH Norvina. I say I love this palette so much, and I do, but I think in the time that I've had this, which is going on, I think it's 4th year in my collection, by the end of 2025, it will be 4 years old. I think I've only used this maybe a dozen times, which is just unacceptable. So I want to use this because I love the shades in here. I don't think this has the most cohesive color story ever. I think this isn't a palette where you could pair any 2 shades together and it would create like a very straightforward look. But I do think the formula is very good for the price. And I also, even though there's nothing special about these metallics and shimmers at all, for some reason I just think they're so pretty. Especially my favorite look to do with this palette is with Volatile all over my eye, and then this shade Dazzling just on the lid, and it's so beautiful just for like a simple but still stunning look. I love it so much. But then I think this would be nice for summer as well because it does have the warm tones. I really wish this palette was still sold. I would totally purchase it again, but because it is getting older in my collection, and I know that ABH tends to go like bad, or the eyeshadows don't perform as well anymore after about 2 years, I just really want to get a move on this palette. Other than the shade Celestial, which never performed that well, nothing has like changed in performance as far as what I've seen, and I'm really hoping it stays that way for the entire year. This will probably, out of all of the palettes, other than like the lid setting shade in here, this will probably be the palette that I dip into like before its rotation the most, just because I love these 2 shades. I love that look so much, and it would be really great for work. My final palette I have planned for the fall, but again, I can use this anytime throughout the year. That's my Pat McGrath Labs. I call this my Pat McGrath Quint, but this is actually called the Eye Ecstasy Sublime Eyeshadow Palette. It's the like neutral version because I know she had a colorful one of these too. That one did not interest me. I love this palette, and again, it's one that I say I absolutely love, and it's one of my favorite palettes in my collection. But again, I've probably only used this about a dozen times since I've owned it. This palette has both a mix of warm and cool tones. I typically wear more on the warmer side, but like mostly earthy tones during fall, just because that's like my color palette. If I did my color analysis, and if you go by that, I would be a deep autumn, which I totally agree with. I think other than this kind of like cool toned light green in here, which I love, and it would be great for spring, so I'll probably pull this out during the spring months for this shade specifically. Other than that, this has a really great fall color story. This is kind of a demi matte. It's a matte with glitter in it, and I usually don't like those shades, but I do really like this one. It is super dark though, so again, it's great for fall. This is a warm tone gold. This is a kind of like cranberry gold duochrome. I don't know if you're able to see that in the camera. And then this is a neutral beigey color, which again would be great for kind of an everyday work look, or I can just wear this if, you know, I want to wear like a bold lip, then I'll just wear a more toned down eye, and that's really great for that type of look. I think out of all the palettes, this would definitely be the one that I would keep if it's still performing the exact same way by the end of the year, because I love it, and if it's not going bad, there's no reason to get rid of it. But again, I bought this, I think it maybe was like sometime in 2022, so it is getting older. The only palette that's not old is the e.l.f. one, other than the fact that I want to get use on it. That's the only reason I'm trying to pan this palette, because it is getting older and I want to use it in case for whatever reason it started to decline in quality. But if this is still perfectly fine at the end of the year, I'm definitely keeping it. As I was picking up my palettes, I just dug the corner of my face palette into my e.l.f. palette, so there's already a little bit of a dent in this one. But speaking of this palette, again, this is the one that I'll be focusing on first, so I'm hoping to get some really good dents in this. Hopefully I'll get some pans. I'll probably be using my fingers for all the shimmers in here and metallics, but so I don't think I'll be hitting pans in those. But for the mattes, I do want to see some pans in this palette. This is what the color story looks like. Again, like I've always said, pretty much half of this palette is very light on my skin tone, so I'll probably get the most use on this half of the palette, but we'll just have to see what my usage looks like by the first update, which I'll be doing monthly updates for this project. I already took pictures of everything, and then again for my face palette, which I'll be using the entire year, I'm really hoping to get some good use on this. I do, at the bare minimum, I would like to hit pan on these two shades. I don't know if I can do that because I am panning some cream products in my 25 and 2025, but I'm gonna try my best. I've been filming for over half an hour, so I'm gonna end it here. But yeah, I'm just really excited to do this. I've never done anything quite like this. The most palettes I've panned in 1 year was 2 when I did the Better Together project in 2023. So this is, again, this is going to be a very big undertaking for me. I'm assuming I'll get the most use out of the neutral shades in these palettes just because I go to work 4 days a week. Not that anyone would ever say anything to me about it, but it's just easiest and quickest to do those neutral simple looks. So I'm thinking that'll be what I get the most progress on. But anyway, I keep talking way too much as always. I'm gonna end the video here. Thank you so much for watching. Wish me luck. I don't know how this is gonna go. It's an experiment, but I'll just have to see you in my next video. Until then, I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching. Bye.